online. So
And I can, yeah, you do that.
I think we might already be streaming, even though it's like,
I deleted the other one, so hopefully it's not that.
yeah,
Oh,
okay.
no, okay, we're live, we're live.
We are live. We are live. Awesome.
So, okay, perfect.
All right. Well, welcome to anyone tuning in. This is the live Big Miracle Energy Patreon discussion that we have 2 times a month, the first and third Sunday. The third Sunday, which is today, is live on YouTube. And if you are interested in joining, we would love to have you. Go to Big Miracle Energy Patreon and register under the Right Minded Thinker. We also have a book club. Just lots of fun things, building a community, a safe space that is free of judgment. But I'm excited for today because I feel like, Brother Constantine, that you've been going through some really big, like, I don't know, reflections of darkness coming up and then like clarity, or I don't even know how to explain it. So why don't you share a little bit of what you kind of sent me in voice memo this morning? And I think it's a really good discussion point for today.
Yeah, absolutely, Ashley. And well, it's good to be here among friends and anyone tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. We're gonna have a beautiful conversation. I just changed my the title of this on our channel, on the Unleash Thyself channel. I said, "Can it be this easy?" And then, of course, with the rest, Ashley and Constantine and BME friends. That's really the question I get to ask myself a lot these days. Can it really be this easy? And what you're referring to, what's happened in the last little while, I mean, my journey has, had many ups and downs and many beautiful revelations. But earlier this week, on Thursday, there was something that came up, let's call it an opportunity that came up. And it was an opportunity both in being me and bringing more of what I bring to the world, but also it was very materially driven. There's going to be this big event where I could attend and I could meet some really wealthy people, influential people. And I was like, okay, that's next week. Can I make it happen? And as I started thinking about it, right, bring it to my head, a lot of fear started to creep up. And as I'll break down every fear, because now I have tools, I have ways to spot these fears, a new fear would take its place. And it was really interesting to observe, to the point where it derailed most of my evening. This happened in the afternoon. Then the evening was derailed with all these fears taking hold of me and being overwhelmed with too much fear, let's say. The funny thing for me looking back was that the fears were just the symptoms, right? There were bigger fears underneath that weren't actually presenting themselves. They're just sending their minions out to pull me back into the darkness, as I would like to call it. Then, you and I the next day have a beautiful conversation on WhatsApp, exchanging messages, and you're holding a beautiful mirror for me to reflect on what's actually going on. And in the process of going down this journey of building my coaching practice and the retreats and everything else I'm building, I to some degree lost track of perhaps what got me started in this area in the first place, right? Like, why would I want to move from my successful corporate career to doing this? And then I got lost somewhere along the way. And when I meet with people and they ask me what's my mission in life, what I've landed on in the last 12 plus months was that I'm here, or like I see myself as someone that would love to inspire and empower individuals, leaders, and otherwise to shine their light bright. And I sometimes say, inspire others and empower others and self, right? So there's a self piece in there sometimes, but I'll say it's like 1 out of 10 times. And as I was reflecting back on what you had mentioned and what came to me in meditation around, like, go back to the intention. What was the intention for all of this? Why did you start doing this? What is your goal in life? And what came through for me in that moment, that it literally changed my entire perspective again, is like, what if my mission is just as simple as just shining my light and everything else follows? It's not about anything external. It's not about anyone else. It's about me. And when I stand in my light, when I shine my light bright, some people will find inspiration in that. Some people will find empowerment in that. Some people will be awakened to their own light, to their own greatness. And as that came upon me, this was Friday evening, late at night actually, this feeling of calmness and ease fell over me. And that's when I was recording the message for you like 2 days later today. And when I realized, it's like, wait a second, can it really be that easy? Where I don't really have to do anything, I just have to be. And like, no, it can't be that easy, can it? And that's kind of where we are today, right now. And I'm smiling because I'm like, yes, it can be that easy, because I feel the ease, I feel the peace, I don't feel the resistance, I don't feel the fear anymore. It doesn't matter if I go to the event or not, I get to be me, and things will be fine. So I'll pause there because I said a lot of things, but that's been, the quick summary of what has happened in the last 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to do this quote quick from the course, because listening to your voice memo really hit me this morning and kind of blew up some of my beliefs, and might blow up some of the things, some of all of our beliefs. But, it says, your ego cannot prevent him from shining on you, but it can prevent you from letting him shine through you. So I think for the longest time for me, my mission was to shine my light. So even the words of shine my light take ownership and responsibility and in individuality, right? To shine my light versus get out of the way for the light of, God, Buddha, the divine, whatever you want to put into that, that blank spot, to shine through me. And so I love, because you use some of those words at the beginning, Constantine, of like, shine my light. But then at the end, it was like you had this revelation when you were sharing that, of like a deeper understanding of, even though you said those words, it was like you had this deeper understanding of like, it's not even me shining the light, because to me, that's you do nothing. It's just you allowing the light to shine through you. And I think that's like the biggest piece with the course is mind training to remove the barriers that the ego has placed up, blocking the light from shining through. But the coolest part I love about that statement from the course too is that even when we are in darkness, or feel that we are in darkness, we are always in the light, because God's our, the divine God, whatever I say, God is always shining on you. It's just you may have these blocks within that makes you perceive darkness, so it cannot shine through you. I don't know, I kind of just went a little bit all over, but to me, because when I was listening to like your voice memo, Constantine, immediately was what my mind was like, yeah, it's just me shining my light. And I was like, whoa, wait, like I don't even shine a light anymore. Like it's not even like Ashley the persona does nothing except get out of the way, because even the light that Ashley persona can become, which she can, right? I have been that light. I think many of us have. That's through personal development. That's through, success and all these light viewing things within the illusion. That light can never compare to the light of God that can actually shine through me. So even me as the persona with light is still blocking the ultimate light, the light of God that literally can impact everyone, literally can be the mirror for all projections of the true light, the light of love. I don't know. Thoughts? Do you have thoughts on what Constantine shared?
Yeah, I mean, just another way of wording what you said was, it would be just yeah, getting out of the way of the ego and letting the Holy Spirit shine through you. And then it just kind of reminds everyone else, they see in you the Holy Spirit, and it reminds them of their own like true, like their true self.
Yeah.
Capital S.
Yeah.
It also came up. I was recording them. So after I recorded the message for you, I recorded a message for another friend on similar discussion, yet different. And I was like, I think the message I left you actually ended with like, the part I'm still unsure about is how do I convert that into what I'm going to deliver in this illusion. And literally after I recorded that, I sat with it for a moment, and I'm like, well, if I get out of the way, it's going to be delivered through me. I'm just the mechanism of bringing that to reality. So I remember like last Sunday, I was at the spa, my favorite place, and I was just meditating and journaling. And literally, I received blueprints of certain things I'm building right now. And it dawned on me, it's like, and now the two of you saying it the way you did, it's like it opened up, it's like this aha moment. It's like, yeah, it's like if I'm allowing the light to shine through me and I'm allowing it to come through, everything will be revealed to me. So it's not like I have to take it to my head and be like, okay, how is this program going to look like for everyone or for this what I'm building? I'm essentially channeling through the information and just doing the human aspect of it, which is implementing it.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
through trust, not through forcing anything.
Well, and the thing is too, like once you start to experience like the true light of God, it's like the rest doesn't matter. I mean, the moments that I believe like I've actually been in the experience of like the one voice of God, like literally nothing else could matter. It wouldn't matter what my job looked like. It wouldn't matter who I was hanging out with, because like I could literally feel the love and just wholeness and oneness of everything in the moment. So it's kind of like, you have to be careful, because if you're using that statement of, or that the act of, well, it kind of goes into the video I just released, doesn't it? Don't you think all this kind of does? When you have already decided the outcome. So you're deciding the outcome, even if you haven't like pictured what the outcome is, like specifically your outcome you're stating right now, Constantine, is about impact in the illusion, right? That is an outcome, period. Even though you may not have the design, you already have chosen the outcome you are seeking through surrendering to the light of God. But the problem is that's not surrendering, because you've already decided that you need to make impact. Does that make sense? So it's like you're already placing weight on an outcome instead of just knowing that it will just all be taken care of. It will all be aligned exactly as it meant to. Like, think of some of the greatest philosophers. While they were alive, they had no impact, right? They were seen as crazy. I mean, even not even just philosophers, but like artists, Picasso, like he was crazy when he was alive. And now he's like this genius who contributed massive to the art community and what art is today. And people study them and all this stuff. So essentially, if you were Picasso, Constantine, you would feel disappointment the entire lifetime you're here as Constantine, because you never had impact. So you would think, well, this allowing God through me is BS because I'm not having impact. But the problem is you never are actually allowing God through you, because you're deciding what the outcome is, which is ego driven, always ego driven, because it's when you are fully in the love of God, it's when the Alpha and the Omega come together and the beginning and ending cease to exist, because it just is. It's like wholeness.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on my tangent? Because I think it's like my video and like the movie we're watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like having an outcome, it's the same, like what Asher is saying, I agree with. But it's like the one thing that will most likely be certain is you'll have an inner peace, which I think is a lot of people's ultimate goal. They don't know it, but that's really what they're striving for. And that's the true way of getting into it, is what we've been discussing. So there's a very highly likely chance that that will occur and that you'll be happy. So it's like, who knows, maybe you impact one person or millions of people while you're here. At least you'll be happy and whatever you end up doing. So
yeah, that's powerful.
I mean, I love watching David because he's just so joyous and he makes it so simple. It's like literally you just do nothing. Like you're just like, hey, okay, I'm just gonna sit back and enjoy the show and do nothing and just bask in the love of God. And maybe Jesus will guide me here, or guide me there, but it doesn't matter because I'm basking in the love of God and life's just continuing on, or the perception of life. But yeah, it really, I mean, it's the ego that complicates things. And so the ego wants us to have like all these titles and these missions and these purposes and these, you know, different colored toenails, like just the list goes on, right? Like the complications just continue every year, at least that I have like perceived that I'm protected in this body. The world is getting more and more complicated. Like I remember the days before major technology, right? I remember when you would play in the streets and come home when the light went on. And then it's slowly, you know, we introduce technology and blah, blah, but that is a direct like projection of the mind. The ego, we start to like, I don't want to say conquer it, but we start to learn how to remove the barriers. We start to no longer allow some of those things to be a distraction. So the ego's got to like up the ante and make a bigger distraction, right? Think of war. Like at one point it was like fists, and then it was like those guns with knives at the bayonets or whatever they're called, with a knife at the end. Like, so you're literally knifing someone just from like arm's length away. And then we have a gun that like throws projectiles, and then we have a bomb, or then we have grenades, then we have bombs, and now we have nuclear bombs. You know, it's like, it's always got to up the ante and up the ante to keep us distracted.
Yeah.
Constantly. So like the most simplistic form is when you face what the ego's distracting you from. And when you face that and you allow it through, is when you get to experience like your true nature. I had an experience of it the other morning, and it was, I mean, I believe I did. It was so beautiful. We were in meditation or prayer or whatever you want to call it in the morning, connecting with Jesus, and a movie we had been watching that David kind of reviewed. He was talking a lot about getting to the point where there's just one voice, the voice of God. That's all that moves through you. And I was like, I want to experience that. I want to experience that. And so in meditation, I just kept just like kind of reciting it, or whatever you want to say. Like my focus was really on experiencing the voice of God and experiencing just that oneness. And I was thinking about a group of friends that I used to drink a lot with and like hold a lot of dark heaviness that I've worked through a lot of it, but still when I think of them, it's still lingering there, some sort of like shame and guilt. And I was thinking about them, and all of a sudden it was just like, it's just like they were the most beautiful people I had ever seen. And I realized like, oh shit, they've just been a projection of my own mind. And I love them just as much as I love everyone else, because they like, it was just like this wholeness of just like warm, cozy feelings. And that's the day, it was 2 days ago, all of a sudden we open our eyes and our balcony's covered in birds. I mean, not covered, there was what, maybe like 6 birds here. Yeah. And we were only in meditation. We meditate, what, 5 minutes? 5 minutes. And all of a sudden, all these birds showed up. And we don't have bird seed out, or we didn't have bird seed out that day because our cardinal's gone. So yeah, it's just, I don't know where I went off on a tangent, but the experience of it is like, literally, if I just felt that all day, every day, which I know the possibility is there, I would worry for nothing. Literally, like that moment was just so, I don't know, warm and fuzzy, but not warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. I resonate with that a lot. One thing that came up for me as you're talking part of it, and I think you as well, Patrick, and earlier, is like, one of the messages I received a while back in meditation was this idea of starting with the end in mind. And then when let's say my ego or my brain took over that, I was like, okay, let's go to outcomes. What's the outcome I'm expecting at whatever end I would pick? Like, it would be an arbitrary end, not necessarily something, or, you know, let's say at the end of a program or at the end of an exercise. And I was in that state of mind for quite a bit of time until recently, when I was deeper in meditation around that, and I'm like, I'm missing something. What is it that I'm missing? And the question beautifully came up. I was like, is it outcomes that the end of mind leads to, or is it just purely intention? Meaning you start with an intention. My intention, let's say in this case, is to shine my light. The intention is pre, during, and after. That's really the end in mind. Is like, have I got out of my way to allow the intention to realize itself throughout this entire process? If I take 4 weeks of my life, if I take a 4-week course, whatever the case might be. And when that realization came through, I was like, it simplified everything again for me, because like, let's say there's 4 of us in this conversation right now. Each of us will likely have our own intentions coming in. We have an intention for the chat, right? Like, there's an overarching intention. Then we each have our own intention. And then the outcomes that we get at the end of this conversation will look different for all of us. And the question for me was like, did we carry through on the intention from before, during, and after? Or at the end? Let's say at the end, in this case, we have a finite end, which will be in, half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever the case. And that has simplified things for me. Again, going back to like the question is like, can it really be this easy? And it feels easy, and then it brings peace, and it brings calm, and it brings ease. And that feeling, it's just feeling peace. That's it.
Well, I think that is at least the intention that I try to make my only intention these days, is the inner peace, is not shining my light, but getting out of the way of the light, and really being in that place of trust and surrender. I can't remember what it was, but Patrick and I were doing something, maybe interacting with some people. And afterwards, like, we would just come home and just really be in this dark space. And so it was, of course, an opportunity for forgiveness, because they're just a projection, right? But we also have the ability then to not force ourselves into that all the time. Like, I think that's the thing that comes up with the course a lot for people is, and we talked about this with Evelina at book club, because we talked about forgiveness at the level of the mind. And, some people will throw back like, well, what if I'm in an abusive relationship, or this person is hurting me? And, there's levels here. The course is really at the level of the mind, what it shares, not at the level of form. At the level of form, you still have to have discernment and, take care of yourself and do what's best for you in that moment. So yeah. Yeah, for me, it's just really like the seeking of peace. And if it doesn't bring me peace, it's an opportunity for forgiveness. And then it's an opportunity to realize none of it matters. So me going to hang out with these people matters just as much as me not hanging out with these people. So like, yes. Okay, then I'm going to just do the latter. That's the thing with like a purpose or a mission in the world today, right? Like, what's his butt? Steve Jobs is just as real as me, as you. Like, Apple is just as real as, like, everything is equal, because nothing is. So there is no like hierarchy or better or worse or bad or good. So really, if you remove those judgments, then it doesn't matter what it looks like at the level of form, because if you're sitting with God at the level of content, like, you have tapped into, I mean, I don't know who the most rich guy in the world is. What's the guy? What's that guy's name that just sold all those Apple shares?
Oh, Buffett.
Yeah, Buffett. I mean, he's got tons of money, more money than anybody. He owns like half the world. But like, you have tapped into something greater than he will ever have in a bank account.
Yes. And what came up here is beautiful analogy that I just it just materialized in my vision here, is this idea of like, we talked about oneness, right? Because I believe, I mean, even the course may talk, but correct me if I'm wrong, about this idea of oneness. And if we are to shine the light, let's say in this way, get out of the way, shine the light of God or whatever one believes in, you can look at each of us as magnifying glasses. And a magnifying glass, like I remember one I had when I was a kid, there was the magnifying glass, but kind of had like a protection on it. So then, if you put it by mistake somewhere, it's not going to like burn your table if the sun hits it in a certain way. And it feels like all of us, when we come in this illusion, we are that magnifying glass, but we have that shade, the protector on top of it. And as the light comes through, it goes nowhere. It sits within us, but it's covered by the shade. So what came up as your sharing is like, okay, well, all we have to do in this life is allow that cover to come off and just magnify whatever is being sent, or you just let it come through us, and then it will make everything else around us brighter.
Mhm. Yeah. But it often appears to get more painful before the other, because the problem is we are so taught that when we feel discomfort, we project it out, right? So which really is the same as like how I talk about shoving it in the closet. So it's still in there. You haven't brought it back to where it needs to be. So that's when, you know, true forgiveness comes in. And we talked about it at book club this week of it's about acknowledging that that discomfort, the anger, the pain, the shame, the guilt you're feeling is a projection, is your own projection. And then it's the want or the desire to have that released. And in like true desire, right? Like we can say like, oh, I want this release, but also we're still just sitting in it. And it feels so good to be pissed off and self-righteous and all those things. But when you're truly ready to release it, then you need do nothing but those two things. And then the Holy Spirit handles the rest of it. So really, in my mind, you're doing nothing but it like bringing awareness and opening the door for the Holy Spirit to take it out. And then that's part of the veil, right? That's part of the shadow or the shade you're talking about. The Holy Spirit continuously, it's like a movie, you know, back in the olden days when they had the big heavy curtains and they slowly lifted up at the movie theater, like that. It's like that. It's slowly getting lifted up so you can see truth. I saw a really good video. I put a piece of it in my video that came out. It's TED Ed. They did a drawing depiction of the allegory of the cave, Plato's allegory. I'll tag it below this, but it's just really cool to see and to know that's what we're experiencing. And it also helps you to realize like how unfavorable it is for people. Yeah, I could go off on a tangent there, but yeah, what are you thinking?
Yeah, everything's just happening in the mind, so it's just being projected out. So if you get out of the way, let the Holy Spirit take over, what you see in the world is what you'll want to see, what will be more peaceful, and will probably improve your experience on earth here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I know Kay has been listening to us. I'm not sure if Kay, you want to add anything or what's coming up for you as we talk about this.
Honestly, nothing. I'm just listening. I'm just listening. Nothing's coming to mind for me to share. So.
Yeah.
When we were just talking about this, I got together with a friend recently, and she's just beautiful. Like, so, I mean, everybody's beautiful, but like, even before I started to see the beauty and all, I saw deep beauty in her. And she's just really about giving all the time, giving. She owns a business, but it's really not ran as a transactional business. It's ran as like, I really want to just like inform you about what she sells, and not sells, but like the services. But anyway, she was irritated because she said people keep coming in for her services, and she does it, whatever. And then afterwards they ask her where they can go to school for this, like where she would recommend. And then they say, and then can I come work for you after that? And she saw this as attack. She was like, what audacity they have. First of all, that's not how I hire anyone. And I was like, whoa. And the next morning I had like this download in the shower, and I sent her a voice message, and I said, I have an invitation of a perception shift. And it's like, nobody wants to work for anybody these days. Let's be honest. Like, is anybody getting a job where someone else is their boss? No, unless they absolutely have to. People are trying to start businesses like crazy because people truly feel like prisoners in that moment. So I really like shared with her to see this as like a compliment. And what is this like reflecting back to you of the beauty within yourself, that these people are like flocking to you and wanting to work for you in an area that usually people are independent contractors as well. So it was just this thing. And still, even when she listened to my message, she's like, I'm going to have to like mull this over for a bit. And then we talked about connecting again, and it didn't happen. We didn't end up connecting, but that was a moment where I was really like, wow. Like, I can't even see the perception she had in that moment of like attack and like, how dare people. So it really just went to show, like, when that shade you're talking about, Constantine, is filled with all of these stories and narratives, and or filter. I like filter because it's like it's being filtered through these stories, and then it comes into you, and by the time it gets to you, it's so abstract and so far from what it could be, which is just like, if it was the pure light, it would have just like filled you more of like,
maybe it was related to like more taking and giving point of view.
yeah,
Like she felt she was taking, and then from them, and then she would have to give to them instead of taking.
yeah, maybe. But that's not like the essence you get from her. But maybe just, like, I don't know.
Well, it's not gonna be. Yeah, it's like something deep down.
Yeah. So it's just like interesting. The more you are able to see multiple perspectives, how often you see how lined up you can be in a perspective, and how detrimental it can be to the things ahead. And that goes to the shade, or the shadow, or whatever the heck we're calling it.
And I mean, also, like you said, it's like the more perspectives you allow yourself to be open to, the more you can unpack of your own journey, and seeing these reflections, seeing these fears come up. Because in the example you gave with her, taking offense to someone wanting to work for her or with her, it's like, I wonder, what does that reflect of her own insecurities around that? Meaning, like, what fear comes up? Is there a fear of perhaps failure? Like, ooh, I don't know if I can be your boss type thing coming up, right? Like that's where this takes me. It's like, okay, what's this bringing up? Because you got me to see really beautifully over the last, I don't know, 18 months that we've been speaking. It's like this idea of like, if something prickles you, if something upsets you, to whatever degree, it doesn't matter. That's an invitation for you to look a bit deeper and see what is causing that. Like, which part of you is standing in the way of this being peaceful and easy?
Yeah. I love that you shared that, because it kind of like sparked something in my mind of more and more what I'm entering into. So, you know, the mind training the course offers at first brings a lot of like awareness and analyzation, but it's short-lived, and then you move through that, because the ego loves to be analyzed. Like, that's why personal development is $1 billion industry, because all it is analyzing the ego 24/7. But there's a point that you shift, and you stop analyzing, you start just like allowing spirit in. Like, we had a moment, it was almost a year ago probably, where we're like, okay, we've been analyzing the ego far too much. It's time to just like step into spirit and allow it to be released. But I feel like where I'm at today is more and more like, if I don't view myself as a persona, then there is no fears. There is no this, there is no that. So it's not even needing to go on a search expedition anymore, but being like, what is this? We don't need this. Like, this is not useful to me. Like, I am not a persona. So, you know, not having money or having too much money, or, you know, that's a big narrative I think I've been working through. There's like fears or stories. They may not even be fears, right? Just stories tied to what those images mean. And I'm like, we rely on spirit these days, and God. Like, none of these stories make sense when I realize, like, I'm not in charge. Okay, bye. You know, like, so it's more even to that as the next stage that I've kind of moved into. Yeah. It's kind of a radical place to be, but I don't know. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Constantine?
There's a lot that comes up, to be honest, and it's like, it keeps taking me back to like what if this were easy? And we're just like, the ego loves to complicate things, and we all love to complicate things, and society brings us up with like nothing is easy, everything is hard. And then
Yeah.
when the easy shows up, it's like, no, it can't be this easy. I'm missing something. I'm being tricked. I'm being swindled. I'm being, deceived. And I feel like that's a great weapon that the ego has for us to keep us in the same spot, or to keep us small, to keep us just doing and not being. That's what comes up for me. It's like, it's funny, I've come by my own definition a long way on my journey, yet there's so many more layers to unpack because I'm complicating things many times and I'm not getting out of my own way.
Mhm.
And it's so beautiful to be reminded and see different perspectives. And I'm like, as I hold the mirror for someone else, it's actually really, I'm holding it for myself.
Mhm.
But the ego is so good at being like, no, I'm coaching you, or I'm talking to you, so it's about you. But really, it's really always about
You.
me, yeah, and everyone, because we're all one.
Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
like you only get the starship vision. I don't know, starship just came out of my mouth. But the starship vision through the eyeballs of Constantine, right? That's where your piece of the mind is. So it's always a reflection of Constantine. Ashley's a reflection of Constantine. Patrick's a reflection of Constantine. Kay's a reflection of Constantine. And then through Ashley's eyeballs, Kay's a reflection of Ashley. Constantine's a reflection of Ashley. Patrick's a reflection of Ashley. But they're all, of course, the greater mind. But it just so happens that that's what it's being filtered through, is the persona of this body. This body's experiences are the forgiveness opportunities in order to remember the whole mind.
Yes.
Mhm.
What do
And
you
what?
think? Oh,
Sorry, don't go, Patrick. Go ahead, because I was gonna take us on a different tangent for a second, because something that came up earlier and I didn't have a chance to share. But go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, so the course says that teachers and students are on the same level. So as a teacher teaches, they learn as much as the student learns. So that's because, yeah, like what you're saying, Constantine, we're just a reflection of each other. It's just everything's being mirrored. So
Well, and truly, I think I don't know if it's the course or maybe Ken says this or whatever, but the greatest teachers of the course are actually just the greatest students who chose to share.
That's a
I mean,
beautiful way to look at it.
and I love that. Like, I'll be honest, I started out coaching and like live in the coaching industry and really did like inner child work and things like that. And a lot of times you feel a lot of pressure that you have to be this expert. And I literally even used the title one time, inner child expert, only for marketing purposes, but it never resonated because I feel like no one is an expert of anyone but themselves, right? Their own portion of the mind. And so when I started to study the course and I read the manual for teachers, which was like just mind blowing. I started to see it so differently. I just happen to be a student of the course that loves to share. I'm a verbal processor. So through me, sharing is the greatest way for me to learn. I mean, I can read the course a million times, but until I actually like share it, I don't feel like I'm grasping it at different levels. So, to me, it's just like relieved everything is like, I'm not like a teacher first. I'm always a student first. It just so happens that sometimes from my sharing, people have remembrance, but that can happen to anyone from anywhere. I just, that's what my business is, because I feel called to create it to be my business today, right? But if spirit's in line tomorrow, that business could be shut down. I don't know. That's up to spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you going to bring up, Constantine?
We're talking about outcomes earlier, intentions. And I hosted a masterclass a month ago now. And in my meditations, in my discussions with spirit, as you may, or, everything I do, there was a message that came clear that this is one of the events that will change the trajectory of my life or business, whatever you want to look at it. And immediately, like, my ego got excited, or I got excited, oh my God, that means I'm going to sell all these programs. I'm going to do all these things. It's going to be amazing, right? So immediately it took that and it went to like, how do we put, like a material aspect around it? And the event happened. The event was amazing from many perspectives. but it didn't stand up to like the expectations I had created without even realizing in my head after receiving that message. And, you know, I had to unpack that. I got to unpack that over the last 4 weeks. And it's been so beautiful to see the various layers being removed back. And what came up for me is like, we in this illusion right now, we're very poorly equipped to see the bigger picture. Like we can zoom out and see all the ramifications of what we do. And the way this was shown to me was so beautiful. It's like so many doors have opened and so many things have changed, not just in my personal transformation, but meeting certain people as a result of this event. The changes in getting in the way in certain things for me is like all these things that I had not considered as being for me, or things that could be, you know, why it changes the trajectory of my life. And yet they're showing up, and there's more and more. And yet there's even more that I have no idea about, because the ripple effect, like, you know, there were 20 something plus people there. Like, I have no idea how what I allowed through to come through for me that day did for someone, or allowed someone to be. So it's this idea of like not being caught up in what we think or we believe something should be, and realize that the ripple effects are so much bigger than we don't realize ever. Like, I don't feel like we're going to get to a point where we're going to see that, and it shouldn't even matter now that I think about it, right? Like, it comes up, it's like, doesn't matter what the ripple effect takes you. It's the whole idea of the butterfly effect, right? A butterfly flapping its wings here in North America, causing a tsunami in Japan.
Mhm. But it's like, even that alone, you use the word effect in that, right? So it's like an outcome. You're focused on an outcome, but the problem is you're taking an effect and seeing the effect. But I think the ultimate place is to not even care about that, and not about not care, but it's just like, it's, you know, Gandhi said it best: be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
Right? So when you just are and you just be, then it's not up to you how it's received by anyone else. And it just, whether it's the butterfly effect or whatever, however it happens, it's not your concern. Again, it's not your concern, the means or the outcome. Your only concern is allowing or getting yourself out of the way, right? Like, that's like our only job. Like, Course in Miracles is just a mind training program to get out of the way, right? It doesn't say like spirit has to be this or God has to be that. It literally, you know, it uses those words, but ultimately it doesn't matter what you believe. All you are responsible for is to get out of the way. That's it. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Allow the light to shine through you, and yeah, get out of the way.
Yeah, David says it pretty well. Like, he started off as being an analytical person, and then he became more reliant on intuition, and
Mhm.
his ultimate goal was to basically make all decisions based on 100% intuition, which is essentially spirit working through him.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that, Patrick, because that's literally what I find myself now. I got a beautiful example I can share. Working with a client, been working with her for the last 2.5 months, maybe 3 months at most. And I remember and I actually have the sessions on Sundays right before these conversations. And one of the sessions is probably a month and a half ago now. I stayed up late the night before. I didn't allow myself time to prepare like I normally would for the sessions, meaning, you know, tapping into spirits, getting myself out of the way, tapping more into the intuition. And I showed up at the meeting all in my head. And it literally felt painful as I was going through it and trying to find things in my head to be like, well, how am I going to help her with this? And like, oh, it's only been half an hour. I need to find some other stuff to throw in, because my session is usually about 45 minutes. And like all these fears coming up, it's like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing good. And, you know, at the end, I always ask a question. It's like, how do you feel about how the session went? And she was like, yeah, well, it was fine. It was like, it was okay. And I was like relieved. I was like, oh, that's fine. And then I kind of forgot about it. Then the next day, as I go into my meditation practice and whatnot, a lot of this became to, or started to be unpacked. And one of the things that came up was this idea of having a different type of small ritual before I go into a session where I ground myself, I come through my heart, like literally get out of my own way and tap more into my intuition. So the next weekend comes around and I have a session with her, and this time I'm like, okay, I'm not going to prepare anything from the head. I'm going to show up and I'm going to trust more, just trust and be from the heart. And it was one of the best sessions I ever had. And it's like, things were coming up and I was just listening and I was just sharing what was coming up. Like you call it, some people call it channeling or just coming from spirit. And at the end, she was like, wow, this is an amazing session. Not only that, that was the catalyst to ignite a major transformation in her. Yeah, could have been from the other sessions, of course, but it felt like that week. And then the next week, same thing. And it got even better. And today we got to meet again after about a 2-week break because of some vacations on her side. And this morning, in my morning meditation, before I had a chance to jump on the call, I received, let's say, a message or an intuition that I would normally ignore, which is like, you should introduce this one exercise that you haven't introduced with anyone else yet, but you've tried it. See how she resonates. And for the record, she's not a spiritual person. My methods are infusing spirituality and mindfulness into it, but it starts very much in the science realm. It's about bridging people over and allowing them to find their own answers. And I didn't know how this exercise would go because we haven't done any mindfulness stuff. I haven't brought anything in. I brought some breathing exercises, but very basic. And I brought this exercise in partway through and I said, hey, I want to try this with you. It may do something, may not, but let's try it. And it was an exercise about listening to your intuition and listening to your body. Like looking at like first you claiming that you love something that you truly love and seeing how it feels in your body, what comes up, then doing something else for 5-10 minutes to get out of the state, and then coming back, grounding yourself again and saying, I hate the same thing, and repeating it and see what comes up. And to say that the experience was amazing is an understatement because I didn't know what was going to happen. I just trusted that I received the message and I'm going to follow through. And she looks at me and is like, I don't know how this works. This is like, because she felt a different sensation with both times. So I'm like, that's interesting. So I said, okay, well, take it and see what comes up for you as you do it with other things in your life. And it kind of goes back to what you're saying, Patrick, is the idea of like just coming more from intuition. And the goal might be to be 100% from intuition, right? Can we get there? And I feel the answer is yes. But it's such I would call it a battle within where the brain, the mind, the ego wants to take over really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that fear. It's just the fear of letting control because the ego wants control, and that's the only thing that's keeping you from being 100% from intuition is that fear. So
yeah. I mean, I'm experiencing it right now and it's been a major test. So I have the Lighthouse unretreat or get together, whatever you want to call it, coming up, and people are coming down, and I have all these narratives in my mind of retreats, and they're everywhere, all over the world these days. And I just really have this vision that this is ran exactly how I've been living, which is there is no to-do list. There is no plan. It literally just unfolds however it's to be. But then this voice comes in, especially like when I'm in the shower, because it's that moment of just like, when you start to think of things that, like to-do list, whatever, all that crap of like, Ashley, you don't really have a plan. Like these people are coming, they have expectations, blah, blah. And so like, I made it clear to them at our last call, I said, don't have any expectations. This is going to be unlike anything you've ever experienced. The focus is really like practicing what we've been preaching, which is leaning into the ease, listening to that inner guidance and allowing it. And many retreats, people go there and it's very structured and there's structured activities and you must do this, you must do that. And I've really learned that that is not the necessary way for transformation. That is really fear driven from the start because you're being forced to do something. And so instead it's like I have many inspired ideas that have come through. There is no layout, and it's really going to be moment to moment of what that looks like. And when I actually let it go, it feels so peaceful, because like Ashley before would have been planning this retreat for months, would have had 50 revisions on what it looks like and how it looks like and how it's going to go. And so much has already changed. Like I had a perfect Airbnb picked out, and then one lady had to back out, and thank goodness it had an amazing cancellation policy. I could, but I now see that wasn't the Airbnb meant to be, because I went on Airbnb and I was praying for the miracle. I was acknowledging this projection. I was saying I, want to release this projection because I was feeling, anger, guilt, shame, all these things for someone not coming, to the retreat. And all of a sudden I was on the computer on Airbnb and I just felt this release. It was just like, it was like the spirit had taken what I had been trying to hand over. And sure enough, I see this Airbnb and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. It's even better than the other Airbnb, but it's way over our budget. So I was like, screw it. And I directly messaged them, and I told them exactly how much it was over budget. I get a direct message back from them that says, check your whatever. We sent you a 24-hour coupon code with the exact amount off, which was almost $1,000, mind you, massive amount. And then I was looking at the pictures, and the outside picture of it, the first time I ever came to Florida was with my mom and grandma. And we went to Boca Grande though, which is far from, I mean, I don't know how far it is. Kay might know, but it's not like here. So there's no mistaking that we're going to Boca Grande versus Indian Shores. And it looks identical. The house on the outside, the path to the beach, identical. So I sent it to my mom and didn't say anything. Well, I said, look at this. And she goes, no way, you found it? And I was like, this is where we're staying for our retreat. She's like, you're kidding me. Even the path and the bushes that are in the path and the different plants are identical. And I know because I stared at them so much because I was worried a snake was going to come through every time we walked to the beach. And I was like, what? I don't remember that. And she's like, because you were a kid and I didn't want to freak you out. But like that story goes on. But it just goes to show that like, we just have to trust and surrender, because even when you think you have a plan, you don't have a plan. Right? Like I had paid thousands of dollars for this Airbnb. People had paid me to come to the retreat. It's less than a week out. At that point, no one's canceling, right? And there's no way I'm going to cancel that Airbnb, because they wouldn't have such a wonderful cancellation policy. And I would never, like all these stories that don't matter. So I've really been leaning into that for the planning of the retreat. And I also have to trust, like, it'll be exactly as it's meant to, which doesn't necessarily mean it's this beautiful masterpiece either. It could be this massive shit show. And then it was just meant for forgiveness, right? So like, no expectations, except we're leaning into the ease, which is what I've been practicing. So it makes no sense for me to plan this thing. I mean, same for Patrick and I leaving the country. We're less than 2 months out and we think we're leaving the country. I mean, to be honest with you, we don't have plane tickets yet, but we do know October 20th, we don't have a place to lay our head. So I hope we get some inspiration sometime soon, but maybe we won't get it until 10 a.m. on the 20th when we have to check out of this Airbnb. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of went off on a rant, but that's where I'm at.
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. We need do nothing. I mean, and the more, I feel like it's a muscle. The more you practice doing nothing, the more you practice just being and allowing that darkness to bubble up and be released.
And it comes back to the question I put in the title of the stream on my YouTube. Can it be this easy? Right? Like it keeps coming back to me and I'm smiling here because like it sounds so easy. It's like, can it really be this easy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can and it is.
Yes.
I mean, look at like Mother Teresa, look at Gandhi, look at Jesus. So easy. I mean, wasn't it Gandhi that randomly, or no, it was, I think Mother Teresa, someone wanted to travel through like this war-torn country, and everybody was like, no, you can't. It's like war-torn. And they're like, yes, I can. Ask them. And sure enough, like it was like parting the sea like Jesus does. And this individual is either Mother Teresa or Gandhi. Whoever's going to watch this is probably going to be like, you have no clue. Whatever, it happened. It was an instance, but it only happened because they were coming from spirit. They were in spirit. They were connecting at the level of the mind. Therefore, like they rose above the battleground, and the battleground just like ceased to exist in the moment for them. Just like when Jesus parted the sea, it ceased to exist in the moment. Maybe he didn't even part the sea. He just like cleared out a little spot and said, see, you won't exist in this spot. You know?
Exactly.
So, I mean, they made it look pretty easy to me. Like, at least the depictions I've heard. Any final thoughts?
Nothing from me. This has been beautiful. I'm just, yeah, taking it all in. It's been beautiful journey so far, and beautiful conversation, right? I feel at peace. So that's that's in line with the intention, right?
Yeah. Kay, you got anything come up for you that you want to share?
I really appreciated what you said at the end about your story about the Airbnb and the retreat, and just kind of letting things kind of unfold. Because I'm in a place right now where I've got multiple things going on, and they are kind of requiring some planning, and there's some expectations, and I feel a little bit of resistance toward that. And also an obligation to kind of meet those expectations. So I appreciated your story about, just kind of allowing and being inspired by spirit for whatever it is that's coming up that I'm supposed to participate in. So I'm going to try to be in that space and see how things go.
Love it.
Beautiful.
And I won't let you know if it turns into a shit show. I'll wait till yours is over so I don't give you any extra out of fear. But like that's I mean, I'm just gonna pose this question. We don't have to discuss it. But I always wonder then, like when you've shifted your perspective like this and we're going into it this way, as long as we maintain this way of leaning into the ease and trusting spirit, can it ever actually look like a shit show? Can it ever represent that, as long as you stay in that same space of trust and spirit? I don't know.
Well, I mean, let me ask you the different question, Ashley. We've all had shit shows in our life, right? Hindsight is 2020. Let's look back at them. Were they truly a shit show now that you look back on it with a different perspective?
No, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
And
How
now
can
I'm
we have that
looking with
perspective
spirit.
in the moment too?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's being with spirit, because you're only able to look at the shit shows from a place of love now because you've entered spirit, right? The ego would always love for you to look at that as a shit show.
Well, yeah, because it kind of goes back to what I was saying about my event, right? Like if I had stuck with the outcomes that I thought I should have had, it would have been considered a shit show, right? Despite all the amazing things that happened and all the doors open, because I was so stuck in one view or a few views of the potential outcomes. So that's, I feel like, what comes up for me. And yeah, it's like, if you are open to different perspectives, then it can never be a shit show.
Yeah, and you always see it from love. Everything is either love or a cry for love, or, that moment I had with the one voice of God, like it wasn't even a cry for everything was just love. It just was beautiful and one and warm and fuzzy. Warm and fuzzy inside. All right, well, thank you to anyone who has tuned in with us today. Again, if you want to be a part of these discussions, go to the Patreon Big Miracle Energy and sign up for Right Minded Thinker. We're here the third Sunday of every month live. The first Sunday is private, and then Constantine and I fill your feed every other Sunday that there is in the month, unless we decide to lean into the ease like we did a couple weeks ago and take the weekend off. That was just last weekend. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Had extra time at the beach. But Yeah, thank you guys so much. I think it's been a beautiful discussion. I feel good. I feel ready to go not conquer the world because that's the spirit's job. I'm just gonna go hang out with God, chill like a villain.
Beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Much love, everyone. Bye.